Coach Vince Dooley, welcome to Personal and Professional Best.
Well, I like the title, Personal and Professional, the best.
The best, that's right. Because that's what the best leaders do all the time. They affect people so that they own up to becoming the best versions of themselves. I want to thank you because I moved to Atlanta in 1985 out of college and had the privilege to be a coach in business and looking up to people to find a leader that I could actually stare at and say, I want to be like that guy. Even though you were coaching football, I just admired everything you were doing in leadership because I knew while football assembled everyone, and that's what your job was as coach, I knew that you were doing what the great leaders do, which is to affect people's whole life, personally, professionally, teach them how to be men, which would ultimately turn into great fathers and everything else. And your impact then is a lot bigger than you probably even know. So I want to thank you. And you are also a pretty good football coach, 201 victories. You have obviously the record, 6 SEC championships, and 1980 happened, which was a challenge for any coach ever, which is to win a national championship. And you're a national championship coach. So your coaching resume in football and in life is very, very impressive. This month we have on our program a guy you know pretty well. You invited him to come and be a resident in the state of Georgia. That's Coach Mark Richt. He's going to be celebrated, of course, by UGA coming up here soon. I thought I'd ask you a couple questions about Coach Richt, if you don't mind.
I'll be glad to talk about him anytime. Yes.
Anytime.
I'm very proud of him.
So he had a great football resume, coaching for Bobby Bowden, one of the all-time greats, not only football, but all-time great leaders. He had a great football resume as the offense coordinator there. But outside of his football acumen and his IQ football, what about him as a person was motivating you to bring him here to coach the University of Georgia?
Well, we were looking for the best young coach to take over this program and to run it. And among the credentials of success, and he was successful as an offensive coordinator at a program that arguably was the best during that period of time under Bobby Bowden. So it was not a surprise that I was going after Mark Richt, because people also knew that in addition to having a good record of football, he also had a good character record, and that he had deep faith. He had attributes of leadership that I admired and liked. And so there was really no question. He was the number one choice to take this job to a new level.
He was your kind of guy. You were okay with giving him the keys to take responsibility for this legacy called the University of Georgia football. So the recruiting process, you're a pretty good recruiter, always were when you were coaching and recruiting players to the program. But you also had a great recruiting strategy with Coach Richt, right? So I understand you picked him up at the airport and it was early evening, and then you drove him back to the campus, and you didn't go to the facilities necessarily, the locker room. You didn't go to your home. You didn't go to a restaurant for dinner. You took him to the stadium at night, and the lights were on. What happened next?
Well, I think that's part of him seeing that there's a great opportunity here, that there's been a lot of good things that have happened here, and it's a program that he could take even to a higher level. I actually interviewed him the first time, and nobody knew about it, in New York City at the College Football Hall of Fame. Got to know him a little bit at that time. I also had the president at the time come in, and we flew down to Tallahassee and met him, interviewed him. And the president was impressed, like I was, with him. Then, of course, you're talking about where he flew in to see firsthand what it was like. That stadium, there's a great view of it from the bridge. At one time, it didn't look like that, because when I came, it was 43,000 people and it was not closed in. When I left as the football athletic director, there's 90 plus thousand. So there's been 50,000 seats that have been added over a period of time. And I felt like he would be the one that would want to be a part of something really big. And part of that was the stadium.
It was a great asset to show off, right? I mean,
Yeah,
the lights
well,
are on, and the bridge is awesome. The view into the stadium.
Well, you would do that with the players.
Yeah,
when
sure.
we had recruits in, we'd have the lights on. So he was a recruit in that respect. And I did tell him, there it is.
There it
you
is.
have an opportunity to lead the Georgia people that are hungry, that want to be a part of something really big, with somebody that has great leadership qualities, not only as a coach, but as a person. And Mark.
Well, every CEO and every coach and every leader that's listening to this interview right now, what they're going to do is rethink their recruiting strategy.
Well, that's just one small part of it.
One small part.
Yeah.
So you finish the interview the next day. Then you tell them you get back to them in a couple days. You call them maybe the following day and you say, I'm convicted. This job's yours if you want it. And he's got to pray about it. He's a little nervous about it. You tell him, listen, you got to get back to me because if you're not going to take it, I got to get to the next candidate. But then apparently he called you that evening, a little bit late.
Well, what actually happened, I did call him, offered him the job, and I was a little surprised that he said, well, I'm not sure that I'm ready to be the coach at Georgia. I may just stay here. And which threw me back a little bit. But on the other hand, I was not going to just say, okay, goodbye. I wanted to give him a chance to think about what he was doing. Evidently, somebody has misled him somewhere. So I said, I understand how you feel. I said, but I've got a job that I've got to do here. I've got to find the best football coach. And but I also want to give you an opportunity to think about it. So I'm going to contact you by 7 o'clock in the morning. And if you still feel the way you do now, then I have to move on with my job. And he understood that. So I did go to bed. I talked to a few key people and told him what the current situation was, and that I would get back with them in the morning to see where we are. As it turned out, I was finally asleep because it's been a long night. Might have been 2 or 3 o'clock. I don't know. I get a phone call, and it's Coach Rick. And now he is committed. He is committed. And so what was funny, I asked him, I said by 7 o'clock in the morning. He said, well, I wanted to make sure you didn't change your mind
and offer it to someone else.
Start hiring somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, he told me, he said, I woke up at 2:30 and I was like, no, I want the job. And called. He said, that guy, Coach, answered it. I said, I want the job. And you said, okay, I offered it to you. You got it. And then you said to him, what time is it? And he said, 3 in the morning, Coach.
Yeah.
And then you asked him about that. And he said, I just didn't want you to wake up tomorrow morning and change your mind. I thought that was just a great story.
We kept that a secret between the two of us for a long time.
Did you?
Yeah. And after he was here, after he had been so successful, won a couple of SEC championships, then we talked about that I'm going to tell that story. And I wanted to forewarn him. And he said, I'd be proud.
You know what? I wasn't going to ask you this, but I want to take you back for a minute. One of the this other company, I've run 2 companies, been blessed to build 2 companies in Georgia. And the first company I built, we had you come in and speak to our organization. And never forget this. I wanted you to speak about relationship and most important thing in life. And, I threw you the football, you walked to the front of the room, and you said a couple of things. And then you said, I've been married to Barbara. And at the time, you said for 35 years. You said 31 of them happy.
Well, we say that to each other sometimes. We said that we've, now I can say we've been married 58 years, 58 happy, wonderful years, which isn't bad out of 62. So every year it's not going to be perfect.
No, that's right.
There's some things that you got to grow and you learn from each other.
That's right.
And but we'll be celebrating our 62nd anniversary next March.
Congratulations. Not surprising. The best people that I've ever met that emerge to be the best version of themselves, they learn how to do relationships, and they learn what you just said is true. And I'll never forget that, what you said, because I've been married now 37 years. And as I could say, probably 33 happy, right? But it's like a great coach. You don't have a championship season every year.
Oh.
You're shooting for a championship season at home with your spouse and in the workplace. But inevitably, things sometimes happen. But the best always come back to mending those relationships and working harder and getting better in them. And thank you again.
Well, you grow from those things.
You grow from those.
Yeah. And you look back on them and found out, well, I'm a little bit better than what I was before I went through what we did.
That's right.
And now we're even stronger and tighter.
Yeah, she's an amazing person. You're blessed to have her, and I think you already know that she's made you so much better, and you have her too. Coach, once a coach, I think God made you a coach because we all have different gifts in life, and that happens to be your gift. Always a coach. So imagine you still on Saturdays, I know you do a lot of gardening, but I imagine gardening gets put away while the football game comes on and you're watching the game. Do you ever watch it as a fan, or is it always that you're watching it thinking like a coach?
Well, I'm around people when I do watch it, and there are some things that I think that I thought would be better kept to myself as to what my thoughts were. So I don't outwardly express myself, but I do think about things and see things sometimes differently. But I never say that to anybody except myself.
Awesome. You're so humble for doing that. Most guys that don't have 201 wins and 6 SEC championships and the national championships, guys like me, sometimes sit at home and actually, well, I don't know, act like coaches, and they tell everybody what they would have done and what the coach should do.
Yeah, there's enough of those that sit around and second guess, but that's the beauty of fans.
No, it is. It's the beauty of being a fan, right? They get to do that.
But I was very fortunate because I have been, first of all, been here at the same place, raised a family, virtually in this same land and same address for going on 58 years. So we were very fortunate to be in one place and to love it more and more with time as we learn more about it. And I was also fortunate that we came from a very modest background. My mother and daddy, neither one of them finished grammar school.
Wow.
But they provided good basic values and sayings that I still have in my mind when things come up. And I can still hear my daddy saying, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And the old saying, anything worth doing is worth doing well. And my mama, she said, manners will take you where money won't.
Wow.
So these kind of things, I was very fortunate. And the second part of that was the supplement of having a football coach that also had tremendous influence on me and the way he conducted his life in himself. So I always thought to myself, that is a position of influence, not totally about what you say, but certainly what you do and how you conduct yourself. So between good, solid parents, in fact, I remember being recruited, and this gives you an insight to my mother. They were trying to say this scholarship is worth, back in those days, $4,000 or $5,000 a 4 year. But she didn't what she wanted to know was there at church.
Mm.
And the only thing that she wanted me to have was a sport coat, a shirt, and a tie so I could go to church on
Oh,
Sunday.
my goodness gracious.
And so that was her focus, and more than anything else. But it told a lot about how fortunate I was to grow up with that kind of environment.
You know, those types of stories, those transcendent messages by your parents into your life, they sowed simple seeds that created who you are and has affected thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives in a positive way and in a godly way. And I just so I guess I came here to thank you, but I should be thanking your folks.
Well, you could thank that. You could thank Barbara.
Barbara
because
too.
Barbara, well, faith was important to me, and I wanted somebody that believed what I believed about
Yes.
faith.
Yeah.
And in fact, she believes a lot stronger than I do, but she's an example and an inspiration to me. But we both share that. We share that with children. We've been very fortunate with raising 4 children here. And then there's 11 grandchildren.
Amazing.
Football team without a sub. And then we've now got 3 great granddaughters.
Wow.
Which is has been also a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? You are you're an amazing person, an amazing story. And your family, simple, decent. And when I hear about the upbringing of your parents not finishing grammar school, what we realize is that sometimes we value things in life, going to the greatest schools and getting the greatest education. And sometimes it's as simple as the parents sowing seeds of real value into the lives of their children. And then meeting coaches along the way, because some of us some people weren't parented as well as you. And then you step into their life and you actually have an impact on them. And I'll tell you, for years and years and years and years to come, and long after you're gone, there will be players and their kids that will have the lessons that the players that played for you, those seeds will get sown into their kids' lives and into their kids' lives. So good news is that it's going to be going on for an awful long period of time.
I hope that I'll be a role model, because I always strongly believed in role models. And as an example, when I was a young guy, my role model was a baseball player named Stan Musial.
Oh, yeah.
And most of the kids, they don't even might know the name. But not only did I like the way he played baseball, but I liked what he said. I liked his humility. I watched him, and you learn from them. The other was Nelson Mandela. Nothing to do with football, other than he took over a country at a time that it was very widely divided, and he brought them together through their great sport in South Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I've got a lot of role models, and one is Michelangelo. Right over here, there's a sign. I'm still learning Michelangelo at age 87.
Yep.
And I enjoy learning. There's a great love of learning and a great satisfaction. So that has also been a role model of mine. Any number of successful coaches, and Coach John Wooden, the greatest coach of all sports, was certainly a role model of mine.
So I want to shift now. You coached so many players and affected so many of their lives. And you also coached a lot of players that went on to play in the NFL and were hugely successful in the NFL. But then there's that one guy who was a generational talent, number 34, showed up at the University of Georgia. When did you know as a coach? Like, was it the first practice, or was it the first game, or when was it that you saw something happen and you were thinking, oh my goodness?
Well, I knew he was great in high school. I knew he had the potential to be great in college. I wasn't sure when that would happen. And early on in practice, he was obviously good, but this super person that I envisioned would happen one day did not show up right away. But I was going to give him an opportunity to do that in the first football game. And I had two other players that had been around a long time, that had worked hard, and that they deserved to start. So I didn't start him in the first ball game. But my plan was that each would take 2 series. And at the end of that 2 series, and Herschel was number 3, we'll see what happens. Well, when Herschel went in, there was no question that he won the job. He won the job not only with me, he won the job with the rest of the football team. Yeah. He won the job with the Georgia people.
Yeah.
And I tried to figure out, why is this person so exceptional? And you go back really to 3 things. One, the good Lord blessed him with speed. He was a world-class sprinter. The good Lord blessed him with a good body.
Yep.
And not because he did weights.
Because he didn't.
He didn't have weights. But his old coach told him to do push-ups. And he even wrote a book, front push-ups, back push-ups, people on his back push-ups. And the third thing, which he always had and still has, is tremendous self-discipline and sacrifice. He probably still works out twice a day. And he was tremendous shape. So with the speed, the size, and the self-discipline, he's the best running back, I think, ever in college.
Ever. He ran around, he ran over, he ran past.
And he inspired the football team.
He did. And so now we go to the national championship game, right? And he's our guy, and we need him. And early in the game, maybe it's even the first 2 or 3 plays, he gets hit in the shoulder, and separated shoulder. And I'm sure as the coach at that point, you're thinking, well, we could put somebody else in, but I don't really want to put someone else in. But it was really Herschel who said, no, coach, I'm going to keep playing.
He came off the field with his elbow up. The shoulder had come out. Notre Dame linebacker hit him pretty good on the sidelines, about on the second or third play. And we had a trainer, I always kid about him because he was kind of Dr. Death. Everything was a disaster.
Negative, right?
Yeah. And he, standing next to me, he said, I'm afraid Herschel's finished. And I'm thinking, I'd like to finish you. Almost for a second, but I thought, I'm on national television. I'd be convicted without any trouble. So anyway, just about that time, because we were on defense, we get the ball back, and he goes back in. They put his shoulder back in place. He ran for 150 yards against a defense at Notre Dame that never gave up 100 yards to any back the whole season. So that shows you the inside character that Herschel Walker has.
Yeah, and when you think about that, was a sacrifice because he knew he had a career that was going to follow the University of Georgia and go pro. He could have taken a risk by doing that, but it tells you something about his humility for his teammates. He was not going to allow them to play without him that night, and thank God the trainer didn't win the evening, right?
Well, the team admired him, and he admired the team. He was a great example to the team when he first came because he had a reputation like no other back or no other player that came to Georgia. But he was out there as a freshman because back in those days, they would come in early, and when the varsity came, they would help take their suitcases up to their room, and Herschel was the first one out there.
Wow.
So he endured himself to the football team by his example and his humility, and also to the coaching staff.
Well, he's still doing all that great stuff today. He's an amazing human being. So 1980, it's 41 years ago, we won a national championship. And of course, the people in Georgia are desperate to win another one. Everyone is in college football, but people in Georgia are desperate to win one. And they've been close a number of times. I was at the stadium at a couple of years ago when they lost to Alabama in the overtime game, which I know you were there with Herschel Walker that evening.
Yeah, we were in the box together.
So all the Georgia fans are so excited right now, rightfully so. We've had hope in the last number of years, but this looks like it's hope that's warranted right now. Do you think this is the year Georgia does it, wins the national championship, Coach?
Everything is falling in place at this point. And I'm a realist because I know what can happen.
Sure.
And but this team is first of all some incredible athletes. They are. I look back at our team 40 years ago, which was good. We had a handful of great players, and the others were players that were good, that worked hard, that were inspired by the great players.
Yep.
Today, you can look out there and say 15 players on the football team that are talented, they can run, and what they also have, as I see it, is this intangible spirit of wanting to win and win a national championship. So there's a great chance that this team
If this is
could
the
do
year.
that.
That's right. That's
you
right.
never know, but I think there's a great chance. And they're fun to watch. They are teamed together. They celebrate together. They got all the intangibles of what a national championship team.
You know, the first night when they played Clemson, I had watched ball all day long. I was watching the game. About halfway through the game, I was like, why did the officials let them have 20 guys on defense? Because it looked like they had 20. I've never seen anything like it.
They can fly to the ball.
They can fly to the ball. So it looks like it might be our year,
This
right?
could be. Yeah. Right.
And
more so than I can remember.
Me too. And that says an awful lot because you've seen every season since the 1980 season when we won our only championship. Coach, it's amazing to spend time with you. Your legacy will live forever. And I want to thank you again personally, the Flood family, because your character, your integrity, your role model as a leader has influenced my life and therefore all the lives of the people in my family and the people that I work with every single day. So thanks for being world-class as a leader and world-class as a coach.
Well, I was fortunate to be able to take as role models world-class people with world-class coaches in their own right, and to be able to have an incredible number of people that work together at Georgia.